rhetoric really gets a bad name in the 21st century. People tend to think either we're dealing with real philosophy or just a problem of rhetoric, as if rhetoric means fake philosophy. Either we're dealing with real politics, real political differences, or just a problem of rhetoric, as if rhetoric means fake politics. Rhetoric is a category of the human experience that involves real problems with real solutions. And this video, you could say it's about a problem of practical philosophy, but it's a rhetorical solution that's been really useful to me in my adult life. I have this habit of responding to accusations, allegations, and arguments from my fellow middle-aged people by telling them, look, I'm a terrible person. I'm not going to debate with you whether or not I'm a good person, but I'm doing the best I can, and I need your help. Why is this rhetorical device so significant? You know, it started off in my life when I was living in Laos. And maybe before that when I was living in Thailand, some other parts of Asia. And I would meet and interact with and cooperate with other Europeans, often British. And I'd have to say to them again and again, look, I'm not a nice guy. Now, why did I say that? Why was I giving them that warning? It wasn't that I was doing anything despicable with my time. I was going to the library, going to the archives, spending time in museums, studying stone inscriptions. At that time, I was applying to do humanitarian work. I wasn't really doing any humanitarian work yet. I was applying for jobs of other kinds too, just to pay the rent. But a lot of these other white people, mostly British, sometimes Australian, they really did have a profound assumption about what being a nice guy meant. Being a nice guy meant inviting another chap, another white male, to come and watch football at the bar, to come and watch the game. Inviting another white guy to play billiards and to spend quite a lot of time drinking alcohol and playing billiards and watching sports. That was really the rhythm of life for them. That was an unexamined assumption about what it meant to be a good man, especially in middle age, you know. And what I was saying to them was, look, I don't live by those rules at all. I wasn't living a life like that, and I was doing things that would seem abrupt to them. You know, like after work, it was like, nope, now I got to ride my bicycle to the gym. Nope, now I got to cut and run to get to the archives before they close. Nope, I'm studying 2 or 3 different languages at the same time. Nope, I'm running around with my resume and applying for humanitarian work. I had all these ambitions that animated me in life. And it didn't mean I sneered at these other white Westerners who were there. Most of them were talking about expats. We're not talking about people on vacation. People who lived there, people who had jobs. But it was really saying to them, don't hold me to this standard you hold yourself to. Don't be disappointed in me when it turns out I'm not a nice guy. You invite me to a birthday party, and that birthday party is going to involve drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, playing billiards, watching the game, this kind of stuff, and I don't show up. You know, I'll thank you. I say thank you for the invitation, and I won't show up because I'm not a nice guy, right? Again, doesn't mean I was out to backstab anyone. Didn't mean I was a ruthless competitor. I wasn't trying to trample on them to get ahead. But it was actually really important to my day-to-day existence there that I got that point across. And then with all due humility, whatever kind of limited friendship, whatever kind of relation between colleagues I could have with these other foreigners living in Laos would then have to start on that basis. Oh, okay. So he's not a nice guy. He's not one of us. He doesn't play by those rules. And I promise you, at that time in Vientiane, the capital city of Laos, there really was a demi-monde of white foreigners, some in the humanitarian industry, some in the for-profit industry. And, you know, the lifeblood of that community was absolutely going to those birthday parties, going to those sports bars, those social events. That was what their community was built on, you know. And I chose to be an outsider. I chose to let them know that's not what I'm here for. Those aren't the rules I play by. And, you know, I'm not going to make the kind of moral compromises you guys make, which is another long story. And, you know, maybe from their perspective, I'm an immoral person or a terrible person. That's okay. Where do we go from here? Now, I've been in a lot of very tense situations with other middle-aged people. I identify as a middle-aged person, sometimes, a few years older than me, sometimes around the same age. And I find that very often in these conflicts, there's a really deep level on which they assume that what's being disputed here is not the practical problem at hand, but is a question of impugning their own sense of themselves as a good person. A lot of us live our lives as if the question we have to ask is, who do you think you are? Don't you know who I think I am? As if this question of how we define ourselves as good people is being raised again and again in the context of conflicts that really aren't about who we are and whether or not we're good people on any deep level at all. I remember one conflict, especially with a professor, but this is true of, I think, many interactions with professors I've had, many interactions with people I've had who are my superiors in some kind of hierarchical situation. One in particular where, I came in to talk to this professor because I was really concerned. We were skipping one chapter of the textbook, and this was a Chinese language textbook. And I was like, look, when are we going to cover this vocabulary? How are we going to learn this for the final exam and so on? This is really a problem on a practical level, skipping this chapter in the textbook. And that professor reacted as if I was insulting her or impugning her or saying, you're a terrible professor, you're a terrible person, you're incompetent. As if really the meaning of this is you're a bad person. And it's not. The meaning of it is the problem at hand is skipping this chapter of the textbook, and that's what I want to address. And she did respond, both defensively and offensively, by attacking me and insulting me and saying I was a bad person and saying I was a bad student. That is an understatement. She got really aggravated, and she said really rude things that a professor should never say to a student, by the way. But I didn't get angry back, and I didn't defend myself. If I get defensive and I get stuck in, then we're both in this trap where it's all about who do you think you are? Don't you know who I think I am? And it becomes about ego versus ego. And again, what's really being disputed is, how do I think of myself as a good person and project this image, this concept of myself as a good person onto other people and get them to recognize it, get them to affirm it back to me? And in that dispute, I said to her straight up, I said, you're right. I'm a terrible person and I'm a terrible student, but I need your help. I came here today. I'm in your office now because I'm asking for your help. No, you're right. No, I'm a bad student. Good, I accept that. I'm not going to debate with you whether or not I'm a bad student. Right. I'm a bad person. I'm a terrible person. I'm not here to debate that with you. Do you think that only good people need your help? Do you think that only good students need your help? I'm asking for you to do the right thing. I'm asking for your help. And if other people can respond to that positively, it then puts us on a very different footing. It's like, no. I'm not trying to get the moral high ground here. And I don't want you and me to get into a contest over who's on the moral high ground. I'll gladly accept the moral low ground. I'll be the bad guy, no problem. But I'm here as a bad guy who's doing the best I can. I'm not saying I'm good. I'm completely accepting your accusations and allegations that I'm bad. But I'm doing the best I can, and I need your help. I remember at the end of that meeting with that particular professor, she saw my Chinese handwriting, and she was blown away. Because, of course, I was probably the best student in that class by far. My handwriting was exponentially better than any other Chinese student. But I think she quite liked the idea that I was a terrible student. And then, just literally I was packing up my books to leave her office at the end of the meeting. She said, "That is your handwriting?" She really gasped. She was amazed at how good my Chinese handwriting was. And I said, "Yes, that's my handwriting, writing rapidly, taking notes in class, writing Chinese." It wasn't calligraphic. It wasn't slow and careful. It was really rapid. And it was, compared to other students, it was already at that stage really good. So, strange, tense, difficult situation. Probably the single most extreme situation in which I used this rhetorical method, because it is about rhetoric, and we're not really talking about here whether or not we should aspire to be good people, was actually at an airport in Taiwan. I got up to the airport counter. a little bit too late, and this guy, again, he got into this really defensive mode. He got really angry. He was trembling, and he was really kind of insulting and denouncing me at the check-in counter. And, fundamentally his point was this was all my fault. I should have been in a different place 20 minutes earlier than I was. I should have known to line up in the right place 20 minutes earlier than when I got there. And when I got there, I should have skipped to the front of the queue. I shouldn't have just politely lined up, which is what I did. I just stood there silently in line, waiting to get to the front, which was the wrong move, apparently, at this airport, how they organize these things. And, he was blaming everything on me and attacking me and so on. And I think he fully expected, probably on the basis of his past experience with the customers, he thought I was going to come back at the same way. Like, he felt like the situation we were in meant that I was questioning his professionalism or that he is a good person or that he's good at his job, and that I was going to come back at him by blaming him and saying, no, you did something wrong. You closed the kiosk when you shouldn't have, and the sign was wrong, and how could I have figured it out? And, he thought it was going to get into a back and forth this way. And I remember, he was even specifying if I had read the fine print on my ticket, which was in Chinese, of course, I should have been able to figure this out. It was ridiculous. But he's really blaming me and so on. And I didn't come back at him by saying, no, it's your fault, or no, you did something wrong, or no, you're bad at your job, or no, you're a bad person. What I said back to him in that situation was, you're right. I'm a terrible person. You have no idea. I've done bad things in my life. I've made bad decisions. But I'm asking you for help. I'm not going to debate with you whose fault this is. I'm not going to debate with you whether or not I'm a good person. I'm a terrible person. You don't know the half. You don't know what I'm capable of. I need your help. Can you calm down? Can you stop insulting me? Can you stop telling me I'm a bad person? I know that. I need your help. And it was really interesting because, again, he was trembling with rage. He was really worked up. And he stopped and he turned to the computer and he started helping me. He started, looking up my case and processing my ticket and this kind of stuff. And just after a few seconds, he stopped and he looked at me and he said, and it was really emotional for him. It was a really interesting moment. He said that he was a terrible person too, and that I had no idea, of the things he'd done in his life. And, we just stood there and looked at each other, one terrible person to another, and he looked back down at the keyboard and got back to work helping me. Right. A lot of the time, in an unstated and indirect way, these conflicts escalate because we're not disputing the problem that is there to be solved. We're not disputing, in the case of the professor, this issue with the textbook and the vocabulary list and how are we going to cope if we skip this chapter. When we're at the airport, we're not disputing, okay, what's the problem? There was confusion, but we still have more than an hour before the plane leaves. Can we check you in? We're not disputing that. We're disputing whose fault it is. And then that gets much worse because it's no longer about fault. So rapidly we slide into this trap. We're not even discussing whose fault it is. We're discussing, who am I? Who are you? Who do you think you are? Don't you know who I think I am? People feel that their own sense of moral identity, their own sense of themselves as a good person, their own sense of themselves as a good professional, their own sense of themselves as being good at their job, is being called into question, is being impugned just by the fact that you're standing there asking for help, just by the fact that you're trying to cooperate with them or collaborate with them. It doesn't always work, but if you can try to deflate the anger, hostility, and conflict out of the situation by saying, look, I'll be the bad guy. I'll take all the blame. It's all my fault. I don't want to debate that. If you want to think I'm a bad person, good. Okay, I know it. I agree with you 100%. And now I need you to set that aside. Solve this problem. I need your help.